First things first, you already win. You already him. You don't gotta pretend. Fuck them. You already king. You stay real. You confident in your skin. It's all now. Sit in the power that you already in. This the story of a master from a true Bedouin, far away from home than few ever been. First round pick, league of the smooth gentleman. The game rigged like 50 said it's a cruel sentiment. I'm from the era when lyrics and bars is over everything. 5-star veteran. You couldn't walk in my fucking shoes or carry them. Excuse my borderline is very thin. Been married to the game like ever since maybe 2010. I realized most of y'all not serious. Point blank period. I flex and twist necks like cherry stems. Thought he was buried, but there he is, a new narrative. I keep winning. I keep winning. I keep winning. I keep winning. What up, what up, what up, what up? How y'all doing, man? This is episode 89. It is October 19th. It is what, the 6th episode in the series? I think that's right. We're doing one episode every day for 30 days. And having a good time doing it. I got the closet in the back. Let me see if I can turn this just a little bit. Spruce it up, show a little bit. Have a little care for what's going on out here. Take a look at yourself. Clean it up. What's good, y'all? This is good, yo. I'm having fun doing this, actually. I'm glad I kind of randomly set this goal. I realized how goal-oriented I can be sometimes. And then also sometimes I am, I'll set some goals. I'm like, I want to get on here all the time, or once a week or something, and then I kind of let that slip. I was like, you know what? Let's do something crazy. Let's push it. Let's try something else. So it's been going really well. One thing I want to implement, I'm learning every time I do one of these, by the way. And one thing I want to do is I'm going to start off kind of following up on things from the previous episode, because I find that almost every episode I'm enjoying it, but I also am like, I could have said that. Or there was this thing I was thinking about and I missed an opportunity, let's say. And it's been good either way. Oh, hold on. I want to fix my thing. Let me just let that rock. Okay. Yeah, so yesterday in the last episode, I talked about Sheba, and I talked about her saga, a bit of a saga, not a saga. Saga implies long periods of time. No, it was a quick jaunt into an issue around her work, around the definition of like a workspace, and Sheba's introducing some of her politics, our politics, her sense of justice in relation to Palestine, and she was trying to talk about that to work at this time when they were supposed to kind of like do a kind of a hangout. You can get into details of the whole thing in the previous episode. You can check that out. But one of the things I talked about, sort of the process of how we dealt with it, how I came to realize and continue to understand and realize how dope my wife is, and sort of the mechanism for how it's something for like what I call love, which is a radical acceptance of what is. And it's one of the ways I approach my wife. And so when she does something interesting, she does something bold, she does something I didn't expect, or she does something mundane, whatever it is, it's her. It's another iteration and another presentation of her. And this is the same kind of like freedom I give myself, you know? But I didn't want to give the impression, and I think I did, in that perhaps like this comes really easy, that it's like this easy thing that I just kind of transmute anxiety into like acceptance. I want to say, and it's particularly in relation to like, with my wife, Sheba and I disagree sometimes. I will not say that we disagree a lot, but we disagree sometimes, and we have disagreements, and different everything from our creative stuff to the way we see the world politically, to like how to do both of those things, how to creatively engage with the world politically. When I first started doing cartoons, I was trying to figure out the political voice and how to approach stuff. And one of the things I was like, I'm gonna do cartoons where I just like go straight at right-wing media people, I was thinking of the Hodge twins at the time, these two right-wing twins. I think they might have renamed themselves the Right-Wing Twins. They're just a brand. They're fairly handsome dudes, light-skinned, muscular dudes who love Trump and talk about guns, and they're black or half black at the very least, and they get into, because they're half black, they say nigger a lot, but they also represent ideals that white people like, and they make fun of black people and sort of downplay a lot of traditional black issues. And I was like, I'm gonna make a cartoon about these motherfuckers, yo. And it's like this, and just kind of making fun of them, and just let's go hard at them. And Sheba introduced me to, like, thinking about that differently, and seeing if that was the best way to do it, considering all the different people we could target, and all the different people we could talk about, all the people we could all the ideas we can push forward with. On a personal thing, as I think we talked about this a little bit, like she was having a a an exchange, a challenge with her family right now, where, again, this Palestine issue, the genocide, she insists that the people around her join her in the level of outrage at just how brazen and absurd and dangerous and inhumane this whole experience is, and to use their voices, and to just kind of, like, powerfully use their voice, which is a lot of what the Palestinians have asked for, to join them, for instance, in using the word genocide, to label what's happening exactly as it is, to not play in the political jockeying and the kind of, like, parsing of words that you get on the media, um, to share their videos and their testimonies and their journalism. Um, and not everybody in the fam has that same sense, and so, or wants to partake like that, or wants to engage that way. And there's been some real stuff where, you know, people aren't speaking and this and that. Where for me and her, like, I feel like there's a challenge there, because she's going so hard with her with the fam, that it for me, my sense of family and the challenge that I have with my parents or my mom and my brothers, I'm seeking to retain this thing that when I first married Sheba, it was something like a storybook family. It was like full of, like, joy and togetherness and this and that, and there's still that's still at the root of what's happening, but there's also this rift, this philosophical rift about, like, how our time should be spent, and who we are, and what does it mean to use our voices one way or another. How can we pass our times, and things like this. That's been an interesting thing for us to navigate. And I guess the point I wanted to make with the whole thing is that it's like, it is a dance. It is just always a dance. And I feel that so many times we get these lessons, we get things in the media, even now, but I'd say even further in history, these lists about how to do things, like these supposed solutions. One of the supposed solutions typically is, like, man is the king of the household kind of deal. Parents are the leaders of the household. Obviously, some of that makes sense, and in another sense, um, there's wisdom in children, and there's also wisdom in women, and the failure to understand that produces weird stuff. It produces a weird society. It produces, all kinds of stuff. The converse is that, though, this kind of, like, openness, this awareness of or an attempt at acknowledging the brilliance that we all have, and having a more cohesive thing. Even the children, to understand that there's some, they don't know everything. They certainly don't know everything. They shouldn't be leaders of anything, but they certainly have wisdom as well. They have an inner sense, and it's like, to ignore the cries of a child or would be the wrong thing to do. You understand that you have to interpret that, and there's more wisdom that comes from them. Sort of the detachment. Um, there's a detachment that they have. At 2 years old. That at 45 you have more fears and anxieties that come from experience. You know what I'm saying? Um, that the child hasn't had. So yeah, just all of these relationships are like all relationships are a dance. Any two sentient beings are engaged in like a dance about understanding what reality is in relation to each other. And so you could be in groups of people, you could be with groups of people who agree they want to meet on the terms of fun and play and laughter and football or video games or something, and that's the terms that they want to engage in. And if you introduce something else, you will introduce something else, and it will force a change. I've guys, like I said, I'm on chat groups where dudes like share Instagram video thoughts. Like that's the connection. And I'm gonna come in with some philosophy or a critique, a feminist critique of that. It will create the rift, and it's a choice. It's a choice to either be in that space or to change the space somehow. And that's the crazy thing. Sheba says, I have no evidence children would be worse leaders than the adults responsible for 100% of atrocities. It's facts, it's facts, it's facts. Yeah, 100% of the atrocities. This is the burden of actually being a leader, of having a track record, of being the person who has to step out. Um, Joe Biden is a terrible leader, partly because he's been at it for so long, partly because he has such a track record of terrible leadership. We don't know how terrible some little shitty 5-year old is, and the ideas they have. They may not understand. They certainly don't understand at 5. I don't know. I don't know what age we're putting here, but I'm gonna go extreme and go with a 5-year old who doesn't understand like how to drive, much less like complex human needs and how to prioritize that with policy and stuff like that. But the adults clearly don't know how to do that either. The adults are foolish and absurd, right? And I think that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Is about reality. Is about like the creative, um, malleable, shared reality that we're all creating, and how it kind of plays out. I think that is a weird thing to notice, that if I update my reality with new information, I have to update myself. I'm not just updating reality, I have to update myself. And if I update myself, I'm not just updating myself, I'm updating the reality. I'm updating my experience with reality, because they're all one thing. Those are two ways of talking about the same thing. This is the yin and the yang principle, and the so many other principles of balance. And for me, I'm speaking from a linguistics perspective. There's a linguistics um uh reality where those two things that are deemed and set up as opposites, are often the same thing, but talked about in different ways. And so I think in terms of the sense of consciousness, and in linguistics, um, you are you are updating yourself and you're updating reality. So like, this is a weird and difficult thing, because this is why people don't want to update reality so easily when they get new facts. Because if they update reality with the new facts that they receive, they have to update themselves. They have to update their own understanding of themselves. They have to contend with the fact that they were wrong before, right? They have to contend with the fact that they were wrong just 2 minutes ago before you got the new information. And just that alone is enough for some people to recoil, because their ego is so fragile. Their ego is so fragile. They can't. It's like a Jenga. It's like pulling out a Jenga piece that was near the bottom, and it was the only piece. You know what I'm saying? Or they think it's the only piece, because they're so detached from reality. They're so attached to this structure that it's like you're pulling this, when in fact, you can have a situation where a new piece of information comes in, and yes, it changes the reality, but it doesn't change the reality such that you have to you know you have to mourn or cling. To have the courage to actually update yourself, to actually admit, to actually let your ego be a little bit bruised, this thing that you had, let it deal with a little bit of punch. It can take it, it can learn, it can grow, it can accept new information. Understand that the like again on the question of this genocide, we're seeing now that the word genocide is being normalized as it should be, as it should have been. The only thing that stops us from using this word is um, a very consistent media apparatus, um, and even from the international community, there's very specific parts of the world that have the power to veto language and resolutions that would have made things even much more clearer than they are now. So Sheba says 5-year-old Biden didn't fund a genocide, adult Biden did. That's right. That's right. In relation to like back to this thing with like, I saw an interview where I think was it Matthew Miller, the spokesperson for the State Department, who's kind of like this renowned clown. He looks really really goofy, and he kind of he's smirking quite often. He's got a weird kind of affect and body language as he's talking about horrendous things and as he's clearly lying. One time someone was talking about the hostage deal. We're talking about the very fact that Netanyahu has been intentionally bombing hostage deals. He's been not just bombing hospitals and schools and children in refugee camps where people have been displaced multiple times, where amputees are trying to recover, bombing those places. He's also been bombing deals on the diplomatic end, because nothing will stop him from achieving his messianic, absurd, ridiculous, violent, monstrous goal. He thinks. But Miller goes, they were talking about a deal. He's like, yeah, of course they were bombing a deal. We're not, seriously considering any deals with Hamas. And he lets go in a moment of like this kind of honesty. He lets go kind of what it looks like what's actually going on behind there. Um, and many of us already knew they have this map. They have a simplified map. They've all bought into a simplified map. Instead of looking at what reality is day to day, looking at the human suffering, looking at the human toll, looking at who is disrupting peace day to day, looking at who is disrupting peace deals day to day, who is killing people day to day. They've all bought into a map. They sold each other a map a long time ago that says Hamas bad, Israel good. Palestinian bad, Israel good. Palestinian animals, Israel good. Palestinian non-human, Israel good. Um, the West versus the East, the civilized world versus the non-civilized world. The children of the light versus Amalek, right? All the stuff that Netanyahu says, straight out of the IDF, straight out of this like Hasbara stuff. They sold themselves on that. That's the map. So it's black and white. It's easy. And from that, everything else they do, the daily justifications, the daily lying, the daily obfuscation, the daily misdirection, these things make sense. These things are sensible. You say, how do you sleep at night knowing it's like, well, they've got a different map. He's existing in a different world, a much simpler, different world. And as things come out further and more information comes out about what's actually going on, about the grapes and the violence and the innocent children being shot in the head, and even before October 7th, about the fact that 2023 was the most violent year for um, in several decades. 2023 was the most deadly year for Palestinian prior to October. Um, the apartheid, as was written about in Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, um, the daily efforts to just frighten and scare people, as has been testified by members of the IDF who testify that they do raids, they do neighborhood raids simply on innocent people, simply to instill a sense of fear. You really have to be desensitized and told a crazy story um, to not see the human toll and what it meant in that space, and what's going on right now. Like, you really have to be lost in the sauce. You have to have that simplified map that I'm talking about, or you'd have to be paid to say the things you're saying, right? Which is very simple. It's like, again, you just like, I'm gonna say what I have been told to say. I'm gonna repeat this stuff over and over and over. I'm gonna ignore my own eyes. I'm gonna give myself a rationale that allows me to do things that make no sense. This is not logical behavior. This is not logical behavior. This is the behavior of something quite illogical. But what happens is now, after a year of it, and after more and more evidence starts to come out, we start to see and the things about the hostages go away, and now they continue into Syria and into Lebanon and attacks on Iran, and um, the broader agenda starts to unfold. How do you update your understanding of reality? How do you update reality? Do you ever come to the proper conclusion, which is, at the very beginning, Benjamin Netanyahu has been interested in annexing Gaza and the West Bank. The only reason they hadn't done it decades and decades ago is because of the international horror and the awareness that it would bring to what they're doing. And that this past year has all been just an opportunity. It's a very opportunistic way to reframe, to reshape the entire region, and to frame it all as some sort of self-defense from this one day a year ago. And so how do you update yourself? How do you update that? Coming from, let's say you're Matthew Miller, right? And this is what you've been doing for a year and a half. You're just on film, lying over and over. How do you update your reality? You have to update yourself. You have to come into a realization. You have to, the ego doesn't want to deal with it. The ego would have to, if you updated that reality that way, if you came anywhere close to what reality actually is about the evil beliefs and actions of Netanyahu, you would have to deal with your own shame. Oh, yeah. You would have to deal with your own, like, who am I? Who am I? And some people don't want to do that. Some people simply don't want to do that. You want to preserve your ego. You want to preserve your sense of, you're the good guy. And all of us, we're the guy. We weren't all fooled. We were doing all this stuff because, again, yeah. We had to, like, okay, yeah, we smudged a few things, but it was all because good versus evil. We had a black and white map that we created. No more texture. We don't want the texture. We don't want the gradient. We don't want the reality. We don't want to apply a consistent standard every moment. In every moment, we want to be attached to an archetype. We want to be attached to a story, a fairy tale. A fairy tale about the world and a fairy tale about myself. What I realize is that as I'm doing these episodes too, I realize that there's something crazy about, like, honesty and coming into alignment with self. It's like, it's a powerful thing to try to be inconsistently in alignment with oneself and in alignment with what you know, what is available to you, what is true, to not block things off into a shadow, and to avoid things, to not create interesting and creative narratives that absolve me of like doing the work of actually knowing and actually speaking what I know. you know, it's uh, it's a process, but I find that it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing. Um, Knowing that there's no such thing as like healed, unhealed. That would be another dichotomy. That's another left, right, easy, black and white kind of thing. But there is a range and there's a spectrum of healing. Knowing that, like, the lower spectrum has this fragility to it. It knows that it knows, but it can't know. It can't engage with it. It really requires and demands full conformity with the performance, or else it gets upset because it has that fragility, because it has that sense, that foreboding, because it won't go into that dark place and engage with it and learn from it and incorporate it and develop a fuller, freer sense. It reacts impulsively and angrily when challenged. The other higher sense of self, awareness, connection with the universe, is malleable and creative and fluid and accepting of duality. It's not the removal of shadows. I think over time you develop an aversion towards untruth, and so it's not the removal of shadows or bad deeds or bad ideas or thoughts. It's like it's acceptance. Like I am who I am. I have seen things wrong. I've done things wrong. I'm imperfect. I have attachments that are personal and not entirely rational. And if I'm too attached and too committed and too, um, I don't know, I'm powerful enough to harm other people. I, I'm not going to pretend to be powerless when it's convenient, and then step into power when it's convenient, but not engage with the fullness of what it all means. And to have to deal with that would be too much. And so I don't. So, everyone has to conform with that. Everyone has to deal with my definitions of self and of the world, or else, mm-mm, mm-mm. So, you know, gonna end the episode soon, but I think that I just wanted to talk about on here about the what I think is really happening, about on a personal level, on a social level, with stuff with the media, with stuff with politics, with stuff with these absurd multi-phase, wars and atrocities. I think that the world is just a complex like tapestry. It's this massive complex tapestry, and the truth is it's all of our realities, our needs and our dreams, each of the different communities, our values layered on top of each other. And this is constantly evolving because my dreams might run into your dreams. You might inspire me to new dreams, or you might pull me in a different direction away from my dreams. You might be a harm, you might be a good. These are just, we collide and time rules on. I learn lessons or I don't learn lessons. I engage in different things. Um, the but our values and our needs are intertwined. Sometimes they collide, sometimes they're in conflict, a lot of times they're not. They don't have to be. You can define things how you wish. But I feel like part of what makes right wing media is this inability to deal with that complexity. Instead of having the ability, the strength like a strong fiber that can bend and mesh and hold itself and engage in new and sort of form itself to new shapes and learn with its surroundings and evolve with its surroundings. The right wing media is a media that caters to people who struggle with that complexity and much prefer the simplistic narrative and don't and part of it too they it's not just a simplistic narrative because it's not just I'm not just like getting into people's intelligence, which there's some of that there, but it's also like they've won on a level of physics and science. The idea that something is has to be challenged. The idea that something is this solid sort of uh infinite is that I'm always Billy, that I'm gonna be the Billy that you remember last time you saw me, um, or that that man over there is gonna be a man the next time you saw him, or that he's a, or that or the same kind of man, that any of these politicians are gonna be the same kind of person, any of these media people, these celebrities, that anything, any of the companies you thought this company was going to do X, Y, and Z, and then in 3 years it shifts, and they bought this company, and they did a resizing, and now it's a wholly different. We allow for that flexibility. We allow for like the creative, especially in the finance and business space, for this creative mergers and acquisitions and changes and new and a rebrand and da da da. If you can make a commerce from being innovative and new and creative, we allow it. But if you engage in yourself with a similar kind of creativity, um, it's it's frowned upon, especially in certain bounds for sure. It's frowned upon so much so that simple stupid shit like wearing a skirt or wearing earrings or putting nail polish on, simple stupid shit like that. So we like to think that we're so free, but even simple stupid personal choices about how I want to feel beautiful or how the next person wants to feel beautiful or handsome, that that those bounds exist and that those are actually, obviously you have the freedom to do what you want, but that adult people can create content, call it news, dress themselves up and make a living commenting on something as absurd and personal a choice as how to dress. But see, if they can control your understanding of who you are as yourself, as a full and creative and ever evolving person, if they can give you a more rigid and more um, unmoving sense of who you are, then you think that's true for all things and all people at the very least. That then again it produces that fragility. You see something, you see someone else living outside of these bounds, and you want to police them the same way that your inner voice polices you. And so the project of like understanding and accepting a more complete world, which includes perspectives of voiceless, poor people, enslaved, the migrant, the the voiceless. The perspective of including that means if you update that, you have to update yourself. And you have to know that that's a thing that happens. You have to let go of the things that you think you know and actually incorporate something much greater. Um, and that's just a challenge. But it's valuable. It's valuable on a personal level for my own peace, for learning and loving and continuing loving my wife, my partner, and for seeing other people in the world whose perspectives I don't quite understand, to do the same thing, to be constantly updating my understanding, not accepting everything, but to observe without the language and the language of left, right, the binary language of good and wrong. Um, yeah, yeah. Was that a full go round on that? Is that all tied up? When you update the world, you update yourself. And so sometimes people don't want to update the world because they don't want to update themselves. And the reason this works is because everything that you are experiencing, you're not really experiencing the world. You're experiencing the world with yourself. You're experiencing your world through your lens. And so part of the suffering includes you. Part of the anger, part of the anguish, part of the anxiety includes you. Part of this includes your definitions and your assumptions. Yeah. That's the episode, y'all. I'll see you tomorrow. We're doing one every day for the next 30 days, all right? Peace. Remember, guys, you see what you're looking for. You see what you're looking for, and it's all one. It's all one thing. You see what you're looking for, and it's all one thing. All right?
Your heart pounding. Clear throat right when the crowd pipe down. It's kinda like time froze on ice now. Damn, stomach tight round, flipped upside down. Try to speak, but the words and the thought took flight now. Sweaty, but can't pause it or wipe down. You pray for the day you flow with a hype crowd. Now they hanging on your every word and slight sound. Boom! Maybe these critics is wrong, maybe you twice as strong. What if every fear and doubt was gone? I'm up first, bright from dawn, like fuck it, we yawn. I squeeze life, pythons bite when the mic's on. Peace, I might respawn. I hook left with the right arm, living in 5-star, ring the alarm. My full nature is still greater, I'm twice born. Inevitable, that's the fucking level I'm on. I know I'm beast, picture me lost, I'm differently raw. Been through the muck, most y'all instantly boss. Now I'm strictly the boss, drippy, hood hippie couture. Feeding these bitches till it's ripping their jaws. Are y'all fans of the bullshit? Me flicking it off, I damage your whole clip. These clowns really pissing me off. My verse is heat, the scripted is law. Like, bitch, you fucking know who you singing across? Huh? Okay, you got their attention now, I keep winning. You just gotta keep showing them what it is, I man. Keep winning. Your shit different, for real. I keep winning. Yo, stay away from the politics. I keep winning. They still not getting the message. I keep winning. They still don't understand where you coming from. I keep winning. But make sure you secure the fucking ground. I keep winning. I see the growth, keep going. I'm through playing it low key.